As the primary race in Florida comes down to the wire, not everyone is choosing sides. The state's governor, Rick Scott, is opting out of making an endorsement. And as things are heating up now between Romney and Gingrich, will he stay neutral? Governor Rick Scott joins us now live here in Washington. It's a treat to have you. Thanks for coming in.
Nice to be here.
Why do you think it's important for you to stay neutral at this point?
I think, I went through a race, year before last, and I was not the establishment candidate. I think, let everybody, talk about why they should get elected. Now, I think they ought to quit talking about the negatives. Let's talk about jobs. I ran on a campaign of getting our state back to work, 7 steps to 700,000 jobs. If you live there, you clearly had to see an ad. And that's the issue still today. Unemployment's come down in my first year from 12 to 9.9%, 140,000 private sector jobs, but we still have 900,000 people out of work. It's the biggest issue. That's what they ought to be talking about.
So along with everything else, because a lot is made of the senior population in Florida and issues about Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, those kinds of things, and obviously a large Latino population as well. But do you think the common factor for all of those voters is still the economy?
Oh, it's the economy. If you have a job, you're worried about losing it. If you don't have a job, you're worried about getting one. So I think there's 3 that people care about in Florida. Every family cares about this. They want education for their children, they want a job for the adults, and they want a cost of living as low as possible. They don't want government to be doing things that raises the cost. They know you can't have trillion-dollar deficits. They know you can't be wasting money. They want an accountable government. But the big thing is jobs, jobs, jobs.
All right, you have not endorsed anyone. You're not going to endorse anyone, but you have noted that Governor Mitt Romney, you shouldn't be punished for being a successful businessman. You all both have things in common in being successful personally and professionally. And so, though not an endorsement, you say, that shouldn't be held against him.
Oh, gosh. We all want jobs. We know the private sector builds jobs. Why would we attack somebody because they've been successful in business when that's where the jobs are? If we don't have private sector job growth, we can't afford any safety net. We can't afford Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance. We can't afford anything without success in business. So I think all these candidates bring different strengths to the table, but he brings a business strength, which is positive. But in the end, it's going to be who does the public say, whether it's 3 points, 5 points, in my case, 7 points. I've got a plan to get the state back to work, every state back to work. Because I know in our case, we've done well this last year, but we need a federal partner to help us.
All right, so you mentioned talking about the specific plans and issues and those kinds of things, but the truth is a lot of negative ads have poured in. A lot of money has poured into Florida, not necessarily from the candidates, some of it certainly, but a lot of it from super PAC groups not directly linked to these candidates. They don't have the accountability of being linked to the candidate who sits there and says, I approve this ad. Right. Do you think that's been a positive or negative in Florida?
Oh, I hope, what you hope is they don't work. What you hope is people say, gosh, I'm not going to worry about that. What are you doing to help me, my family? Because in the end, when you go vote, you're going to say, okay, so is this good for my family or not good for my family? Are you going to help me get a job? Are you going to help me my kids get an education? Are you going to keep the cost of living low? That's what they're going to think about. And, I think in Florida, because that's all I've talked about the last year I've been in office, I think it's even more relevant that they say we're doing the right thing in the state. Unemployment's come way down. We're the 2nd biggest drop in the country, 3rd biggest in job growth. We want somebody at the federal level to do what we've done: lower taxes, reduce regulation. We're paying down our debt. We've got a AAA credit rating. The federal government ought to be doing the exact same thing.
Do you think the heated back and forth, the debates, all that's gone on thus far, and whether it continues to be protracted all the way through the conventions, do you think that ultimately hurts the party and gives the Democrats ammunition, or do you think that it actually sharpens the eventual nominee?
Oh, look at the benefit. For very little money, you get your message out. This is the greatest thing. I think it's outstanding that they've had these debates, and you get to answer the question. You get to explain what you're doing. You get to, defend if somebody wants to attack you, defend it. But what I would do if I was in those debates, I would say, I understand that's an issue, but let me tell you the biggest issue. The biggest issue is how do I make sure that each family in this country has the same opportunity I've had to get a job?
All right, and if you eventually do decide to get into those debates one day, want to make a presidential announcement, come back to America's News Headquarters. We'd love to hear it.
I think that's going to happen.
All right, Governor Rick Scott, thank you very much for your time.
Nice to be here.